Today I'm going to bring you a care video on ringneck snakes, Diodophis punctatus. I've probably said that very wrong, so don't take my pronunciation on it as word. This is probably my most requested care video that I have received, and I think that's because there's virtually no solid care info whatsoever anywhere on the internet about ringneck snakes. So the way that I have my girl set up is based on a bunch of cumulative research that I've done talking to people who have attempted to keep them in captivity, as well as piecing stuff together from various nature sites that go over what is known about them. And they're such a cute little snake, so I'd like to see them in the hobby more. And I think if there's actually care info out there, there would be a greater demand for people to actually get these snakes in stock, because more people would be buying them. So this is her tub. I may or may not take her out because ringneck snakes are extremely shy, and that is a very big thing to note. Ringneck snakes, they're very shy. They can be stressed very easily. Now, that is not to say that they can't be handled. I do and can handle my particular ringneck snake. Now, I wouldn't do it as often as I would, say, like my corn snake. I'm not going to take her out and just hang out on the couch with her for an hour, or, take her to the pet store with me. I'm not going to do that. But I can handle her fairly regularly in relatively short intervals, and she doesn't display signs of stress. She doesn't run away from me and wiggle and freak out and try to bite me, like milk snakes do. Will sit pretty calm, just kind of moving around, checking things out, wanting to smell the camera, that sort of thing. So she handles a lot like a baby corn snake would. And as you can see, this is her cage. It's simple. It's fairly simple. They are not difficult snakes at all to keep folks. It's just there you can actually see her head. You see that little ring there. It's just there's no good care info, and because they're so small, they've been very difficult to study in the wild to get us better information. So this is how I do it, and I've had her for a year. This particular cage here, it's just a sterilite container, and you can see I have holes around the edges of it, and then there's a bunch of holes on the lid. These are very slender, very tiny snakes, so you want something with a very good fitting lid. They can easily slip out of a traditional screen top aquarium that doesn't have the lid fitted on tight enough, and they can easily get between sliding door panes, stuff like that. So the plastic just made the most sense for me. It's the most secure, and it's got these clips here on the side. And then the long edges, I actually put binder clips on them too to make it extra secure. And she hasn't gotten out, so it must be working. I'd say something about the size of a 5.5 gallon aquarium. Somewhere around there is probably about what you'd be looking at for a single adult. My girl here measures in at 2.3 feet. And the females are larger than the males. The males are probably going to largely be closer to 1.5 feet when full grown, and babies are like minuscule. They are so freaking tiny. I mean, for a snake, she's pretty much tiny as is. And as you can see, she's kind of looking at me, checking out the camera. Oh, there she went. She's a little shy. I spooked her. Sorry. So she's inquisitive. She's definitely inquisitive. Even though she was out earlier today, she's not afraid. She's coming to see what's going on and whether or not I'm bringing her dinner yet, because it's feeding time. Now, a couple of things that you definitely need to note about ringneck snakes. In the wild, they are often found living underneath leaf litter, under rocks and logs. These particular areas, they're tight, They provide a lot of security. It's dark. It's typically damp, or at least a higher level of humidity in these areas from the rest of the world outside. And the temperature is also cooler than the rest of the area outside. So just because she came from Mexico doesn't mean I'm going to keep her really, really hot, because, you know, in the wild she's going to hide in cooler areas a lot. It's because of this that I thought the best way to keep my ringneck snake happy and healthy and have the best success would be to actually try and replicate this choices of microhabitat that they would have in the wild. So I have a very loose substrate in here. I just gotta be careful, she's gonna fly out at me because it's feeding time. This is just dry sphagnum moss. It's very loose. She can easily burrow in underneath it and through it, just like, you know, in the wild she'd be able to crawl under all the leaf litter. So I like the moss. Leaf litter would be a really natural option, of course. I think something like chipped aspen might be okay. I personally suggest the leaf litter or the moss, though, because you do need a little bit of humidity. That being said, I do not spray her cage down pretty much at all. I might spray down one wall of the cage once a week very lightly to increase overall humidity when my reptile room is dry, such as in the winter or she's about to go into shed. But instead, what I have is a humid hide. This back here, I'm trying to be careful. This back here is a big container that is filled with very, very wet coconut fiber that she can sit in. I didn't have the lid for the container, so I just put this over top to keep everything shaded and help hold the humidity in. So that's providing a humid microclimate. It is giving her the option to choose just how much humidity that she needs in order to be healthy. And since they are found in humid areas, but there's no real study or definition on how much humidity they require, I felt this was the best option. I'm giving her the choice between dry or a higher humidity. So I feel it is definitely very, very important to make sure you have a humid hide in a ringneck snake enclosure. If you have space to do 2 different humid hides, that's even better. One that's really wet and one that's, you know, just slightly damp or something like that, so you can provide more overall choices as far as the humidity level. And you can see that I don't really have a lot of bare surface area in this cage, being as how they're you know, very nervous creatures. This plant spans most of the cage. Silk, plastic, whatever, any kind of fake plant set directly on the substrate surface and just spread out across it is amazing thing for any snake, any lizard, whatever, to provide a sense of security, because they can climb underneath it and in it. You can still see them, but they feel that there's some kind of physical barrier hiding their presence and breaking up the, you know, the overall look of where their head and tail is and stuff like that. It makes them feel more comfortable. They don't feel so exposed. Cork flats, something like this, which is just a half of a plastic flower pot, that again would sit really low, relatively flat on the surface. Larger, like I said, leaf litter is good. You can add leaf litter in on top of the moss. I have one leaf over here just for decoration, but I think come this fall, when I have a chance to collect more leaves, I'm going to get a whole bunch more and just dump them in on top. So that'll give it more naturalistic vibe and everything for her, and more places just for her to hide. She is an extremely active snake. She is out usually around dawn and dusk, just like my corn snake, cruising around, looking for food, checking what I'm doing. So you just saw she came, poked her little head out. You could see just the ring there to check what was going on, what was I doing with the camera. Very inquisitive, very active. I've had a lot of people tell me that they never see their ringneck snakes when they've attempted to keep them. They just stay buried all the time. And in their particular setups, all they had was dirt, maybe a hide or some grass clippings. They didn't there was a lot of wide open space, so that's probably why this snake remained hidden most of the time. It was scared. It felt too exposed. Like there was nothing to break up the line of sight between them and you, so they stayed hidden all the time. A stressed, always hiding snake is a snake that's probably not going to eat. My water bowl is big enough for her to fit into, though I never see her soak, but she always has the option that she can fit in there if she wants. Now that we've covered that is cover is very important, and that microclimates, different areas of humidity choices is important. It's also important, since there wasn't a lot of definitive info on what kind of temperature to set their cage at, I just put, like a few inches, about that much, of under the tank heat mat, under this edge of the tank. And the reason why I only put like a sliver of the mat is so I'm creating a larger thermal gradient across this cage. The spot on top of the heat mat should be the high 80s, low 90s. Again, because there's no definitive temperature zone. I'd say if your species comes from the more northern regions, such as Canada, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maine, those sort of states, that you should probably go a little cooler, more of the high 80s. And then if your snake is more from the southern, Florida, California, central United States, Texas, Mexico, I'd err more on the low 90s side of that range, just based on what temperatures are kind of like in those areas. Now that we have that out of the way, choices, that's the thing to take away from this. Choices in temperature, choices in humidity. Let the snake choose what it needs. It goes a long way. Now on to feeding, and this is a big one. For me, I personally feel that one of the top reasons why people fail to successfully keep ringneck snakes in captivity is because they're offering the wrong kind of food. Most sellers and most of the care sheets which do exist say to feed them earthworms, red wigglers, that sort of thing, basically like a garter snake. While they may indeed eat these things in small amounts because it is found in the same areas they are located, it's, for what I've actually found from reading nature sites and what I've experienced with my girl, is that the majority of their diet actually consists of small reptiles and amphibians. So if you're going to get a ringneck snake, make sure you have a good, easy source of anoles, house geckos, small tree frogs, that sort of thing. Either breed them or a store that usually has them, that sort of thing. Both anoles and house geckos pretty easily bred for the most part, and I am told that reed, R-E-E-D frogs, breed readily in captivity without the use of a rain chamber, which most other frogs would require, and their tadpoles are definitely an appropriate size for something as small as a ringneck snake here. So that's something you can look into. My girl here has actually readily switched over to eating scented, frozen thawed pinky mice. She actually switched a lot faster and easier than I thought. My rhino rat snake, which you may be familiar with, took significantly, like 3 times longer to switch off of live fish to frozen thawed fish scented pinkies than she did. So she switched very quickly to just a frozen thawed scented pinky. I offered fresh killed anoles first before attempting a scented frozen thawed pinky. It literally took me a matter of just a couple of feeding attempts to get her fully switched. Not had a problem since. She nails them. It's not an issue. And you can either make your own scented scenting solution, where you can actually Reptilinks online does sell a liquid, a frozen liquid in a bottle about this big. Either you can get it in various different things, lizards or amphibian, that you just keep frozen, and then you can dab it onto your rodents, your frozen rodents, to scent them. You can just buy one, humanely kill it, keep the whole body in the freezer, and rub your mice on that. I sometimes use the dirty frog poopy water from my pet frogs tanks to do amphibian scenting on rodents. Or you can actually make your own very convenient lizard or amphibian scenting solution. It's very disgusting, but it's very convenient. I went to the store, I bought a bunch of anoles, I euthanized them in a, tight, unventilated box with vinegar and baking soda, which foams and creates carbon dioxide, which puts them to sleep and kills them. It's the same concept as a gas chamber, which is typically used to kill the bulk frozen feeder rodents that you're going to buy from people. I then froze the lizards solid for several days to kill any parasites they may have, and then I pureed them in a really good blender with a little bit of water. I was then able to freeze the puree, and I can just break off or take a cube out of what I need, and I just throw that in a plastic bag with my frozen Pinky Mouse, and I let it dethaw together and soak up all the juices. And I always usually have like a chunk of skin or something from the mix that I actually grab on the tongs with the Pinky to really get that scent on there good for her. And I haven't had an issue. So it's fairly easy. I think she's ran and hid now. I was going to show her to you guys, but she's not having none of this today. If you have any questions, just go ahead, put it down below. I may not be able to answer you for a couple of weeks if I'm not checking my YouTube, but at some point I will reply to you, because they're very easy snakes to keep. They're very small, and the Harley here has been an absolute joy. She's never bitten me or been too flighty. I can take her out for her cage and just, do health checks, hold her a little bit now and then. She's been easy to feed once I got her going. I've had zero issues. She sheds perfectly, and she's inquisitive, and just their color is amazing. That dark color along their back with just the really, really bright belly and the bright chin. It makes her a very striking yet simplistically beautiful animal. And I love when I walk into my reptile room and I see her cruising around along the edge of the tank, and I get to see her, and I enjoy feeding her. She's wonderful. I'm so glad I didn't chicken out and that I did fork over the money to buy her. I do want to note that when I bought her, she was a short-term captive. The particular guy I got her from, was fully open to the fact that she was wild caught from Mexico. However, she had been kept under quarantine and observation for 3 months prior to being offered for sale. So by the time I got her, she was already somewhat acclimated to captivity and wasn't showing any signs of parasitism. They, being wild caught, they do often have parasites, so get a fecal sample done ASAP by a vet and get any intestinal worms or flagellates or anything like that they have treated right away, because if they have a heavy parasitic load, it doesn't matter if you're offering the proper food or not and have a perfect setup. You could match my setup like this. If it's got a heavy parasite load, it's probably not going to eat, and it's going to die. That is the other, I think, very big reason why they die in captivity. That isn't keeper's error per se, though. I mean, it is, because you should have had a screen for it, but it's not like a setup general care husbandry error. The biggest husbandry husbandry error, in my opinion, like I said, is not offering the correct food, because the care sheets, don't tell you the right thing. And the second, I'd say, keeping error, I think that's most common, is The humidity is wrong. Too much humidity, not enough humidity. And stress from just having the cage being way too bare and way too open. This is not an animal that's going to do well in a basic, like, snake rack system at all. You need to jam pack in decorations and just have a lot of cover for these animals. And like I said, she's very active. She's shy, and as you can see, she stressed and ran and hid. But even though making this video did stress her a bit, I guarantee you I leave the room for about 30 minutes and I can pop food in there and she's gonna take it as if I've never fed her in her life. Ringneck snakes do indeed have a very, very strong feed response. She nabs food as fast as my corn snake. So if the snake is not doing the short tongue flicks and the twitching and checking out the food and being obviously interested in the food like any other snake would, you are offering the wrong kind of prey, or they are too stressed to eat, either from your overall setup being incorrect, temperature, humidity, not enough cover, or they're stressed because they are sick with mites or worms or something. So the ringneck snake should be active and they should be eating. I have not at all thought that she was a difficult snake. I spent way more time with my rat snake trying to get him fully settled in and acclimated than I have this wild caught snake. So please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I will answer you at some point because I would really, really like to see ringneck snakes becoming more popular and more people keeping them, and then people, you know, eventually being able to breed them, that we would have information for future generations on how to breed them and different viewpoints from other people and how to successfully keep these snakes so that they can have a more viable place in the hobby. All right.